My sister and I were born on the same day, yet our father claimed that twin daughters were a curse. He forced a choice between me and my sister. One would be the legitimate daughter, and the other would be a servant. My sister was born with a lotus mark on her forehead. My father, loving his wife's perceived purity, immediately decided my sister would be the noble legitimate daughter. As for me, I became a slave to serve him. Later, due to that lotus birthmark, my sister was hailed as holy and was officially titled the Holy Maiden. To stabilize the outer borders, she volunteered to marry into the Xiongnu tribe, becoming a role model for every noble lady in Jincheng. Supposedly sharing in her good fortune, the emperor bestowed a marriage upon me with the crown prince. But on the night before the wedding, my sister and stepmother drugged me. They plotted to switch our bridal sedans and stole my dowry. By the time I woke up, my sister had married into the Eastern Palace, becoming the respective crown princess. Meanwhile, I was forced to marry far away to the Xiongnu. In my previous life, I risked everything to break into the Eastern Palace to seek the truth. My sister, to protect her reputation, pretended to hang herself, but it was all a ruse to provoke the prince's anger. The crown prince was furious, claiming I was jealous of my sister's pure reputation and that I was deliberately framing her. He brought 10 beggars to humiliate me, then threw me onto the peace marriage sedan. Sister stole my identity to become the crown princess, gave birth to triplets, became a legendary virtuous empress, and left her name in the history books. But I was decapitated, dying a tragic death outside Yanmen Pass. When I wake up again, I rush to open the door before the matchmaker can. The guests outside are shocked to see me. A commotion erupts. The matchmaker's smile instantly freezes. Second young mistress? Weren't you already put in the sedan and sent to the Eastern Palace? Friends and family of the Prime Minister's estate crowd around me. They ask in shock, what is going on? The bridal sedans were switched. Quick, chase the sedan back. Switching bridal sedans is a crime of deceiving the emperor. My stepmother pulls me into her arms, crying loudly. Wanning, how could you be so foolish? I know you loathe the crown prince. But just because you don't like him, you can't trick your sister into marrying him in your place. As soon as she speaks, the looks people give me turn into scrutiny. They even start to think I am the villain, disrespectful and disloyal to the royal family. I see the look of smug triumph in my stepmother's eyes. I take it all in. I can't help but remember she was exactly like this in my previous life. With just a few words, she flips black and white, accusing me of despising the royal family. The crime of defying the imperial decree is pinned on me. Using her status as a high-ranking lady, she expelled me from the family genealogy, and when my father returned from the south, she and my sister distorted the facts even further, saying I brought shame upon the family. My father was instantly enraged. He kicked me out of the house directly, ordering that no one be allowed to bury my corpse. But this time, I withdraw from her embrace without a trace. Tears fall heavily from my eyes. I lift my injured hands for everyone to see. Mother, what are you saying? Last night, you told me sister was marrying to the Xiongnu, and the journey was long, so she couldn't take her Kongho harp with her. You asked me to remove the strings one by one, to give to sister as a keepsake. I pulled them for an entire night. My hands were cut and bleeding from the tension. Then sister disappeared, and the wedding dress was gone too. The expressions of the crowd shift again. Matters of the inner courtyard are easily seen through by women. Griping her handkerchief, the Duchess of Yongchang stands out from the crowd. She grabs my hand tightly, supporting me. Back then, to marry into the Prime Minister's estate, you forced the lord to demote his wife to a concubine. Now, knowing the north is a bitter wasteland, you plotted to send Wanning there instead, while your own daughter marries into the Eastern Palace for wealth and glory. My stepmother looks panicked for a second, then squeezes out 2 more tears. I only thought of your well-being. And now I'm the villain? Wanning, you tell them. How have I treated you normally? The moment she reaches for me, I cover my head in terror, looking like someone who is habitually abused. My sleeves slide down, revealing arms covered in bruises and scars. The Duchess of Yongchang pulls my sleeves up further. What is wrong with these arms? Someone brushes back my hair. Heavens, the second young mistress of the Prime Minister's house. Why is there congealed blood under her hair? Hearing this, the Duchess of Yongchang sweeps a sharp gaze over my stepmother. Someone, call the imperial physician to examine the injuries. The physician is the Duchess's cousin. Hearing of the trouble, he arrives at the estate immediately. He looks at the scars on my body and carefully examines my hands, marked by the harp strings. He sniffs the strings and immediately concludes the injuries on Wanning are caused by years of physical abuse. But the most fatal part is, these strings were coated with a potent knockout drug. The drug entered Wanning's body through the wounds on her hands, causing her to fall into an unconscious sleep. It is truly a blessing from heaven that Wanning was able to wake up at all. I stagger as if about to fall, tears pouring down. Mother, why did you harm me like this? I have always been respectful to you and my sister, never daring to overstep in the slightest. Now sister has worn my wedding dress to marry the crown prince. If the emperor finds out, is that not the crime of deceiving the emperor? At best, sister will be kicked out of the Eastern Palace. At worst, our entire family could be executed. If mother doesn't care about me, don't you even care about father's career? The stepmother knows this is becoming hard to manage. She kneels, dabbing her eyes with her handkerchief. Wanning, it is all mother's fault. Chongming was terrified of the north. That's why she did such a foolish thing. You are her sister. You can empathize with her, right? Why don't we just say you swapped with her voluntarily? The Duchess of Yongchang is furious. She slaps her right across the face. The daughter of a prime minister should not be married off so haphazardly. What do you mean voluntarily swapped? Clearly, you wanted to have it both ways. You wanted the glory of volunteering for a peace marriage but didn't want to suffer the hardships of the north. So you used wanting to clean up your mess. Now that the plot is exposed, you want wanting to take the blame and carry the infamy of deceiving the emperor. First, you stole Wanning's biological mother's husband. Now you incite Chongning to steal Wanning's marriage. Do you really think there is no one in the capital who can keep you in line? Because I have nothing to fear. I am the wife of the prime minister. When the master is away, I handle all matters of the household. The marriage of the daughters is naturally for me to decide. Even if your Yongchang estate is powerful, this is the prime minister's inner court. What right do you have to speak here? I stare into my stepmother's eyes. And what about my dowry? When sister entered the eastern palace, she took it. That was the dowry my mother left for me. Her eyes flicker. You're being too formal. Sisters are one. Whatever leaves the prime minister's estate is the prime minister's dowry. It was the same in my previous life. Sister stole my marriage. And she stole every bit of the dowry my mother left me. Stepmother counted on me being timid and afraid, thinking I wouldn't dare defy her or make a scene. But this time, what is mine? No one will take. The Duchess of Yongchang, full of righteousness, is truly angry on my behalf, utterly insatiable. Back then, you used the lotus on Chongning's forehead to reap all the benefits. She volunteered to marry into Shonu to settle the war. After gaining fame and profit, she comes back to steal her younger sister's marriage. Now you even want to steal the last things a deceased mother left for her child. You should be reported to the emperor to let him settle this clearly. Thinking of my past life suffering, I follow the Duchess out of the estate gates. I meet the Shonu envoy. I bow to him. Sir, there is a discrepancy in today's peace marriage. My sister has already married into the Eastern Palace by impersonating me. I am willing to fulfill the obligation for her. I wonder if the Shonu king is willing? The envoy did not expect that I would come forward and lay everything out for him. A hint of surprise flashes in his eyes. Sons of the desert do not care for trivialities. What we want is an attitude. Since you are a noble lady of the great Zhao, if you go voluntarily, the Shonu will treat you with the rights of a primary wife. Good. But before that, please do one thing for me. I speak to him in a whisper only we can hear. Setting up a loud collaboration. The emperor has just finished the toast tea from the crown princess. He is looking at the couple with joy. Suddenly, he is interrupted by the sound of the drum of justice. Everyone present feels something bad is about to happen. The imperial drum hasn't been struck for centuries. Your Majesty, there is a great injustice. The Duchess and I appear before the palace gates. The festive music in the hall comes to a screeching halt. Seeing me outside the hall, the head maid steps forward. She lifts the crown princess's veil. The hall falls into a dead silence. Isn't this the eldest Jiang daughter who volunteered for the peace marriage? What is she doing here? And why is the second young mistress striking the drum outside? What on earth has happened? The emperor's face is cold as water. Jiang Chongning, you were supposed to go to the peace marriage. Why are you here? What is going on? Jiang Chongning hides behind the crown prince in fear. Her eyes are darting around, unsure how to respond. I kneel on the ground holding the imperial decree. My voice is raspy. Your Majesty, I am here to return the decree. Last night, Mother said the north was remote. And since sister loved her Kongho harp, she asked me to help remove the strings. To keep as a memory. I didn't know the strings were coated with knockout drugs. I fell into an unconscious sleep. I don't know how long I was out. When I woke up this morning, my wedding dress, jewelry, and even the bridal sedan were gone. I feared missing the auspicious time. So I rushed here to beg your Majesty's forgiveness. I didn't expect to hear that His Highness the Crown Prince had already received his bride. I am here specifically to return the imperial decree. The emperor's gaze is sharp as a knife. He turns to the crown prince. Prince, when you were marrying your princess, did you not notice the bride had been switched? The crown prince tries to stay calm. Father, I saw the woman in the sedan wearing the phoenix crown and robes. It complied with the regulations, so I proceeded. I did not lift the veil yet. I look up, revealing my own set of golden phoenix robes. Indeed, when I woke up, my wedding dress was missing. The emperor's gaze lingers on the crown prince's hand, which is tightly gripping Jiang Chongning's waist. His eyes turn cold. Jiang Chongning falls to her knees with a thud, looking extremely wronged. Last night, sister kept saying that she already had a lover and didn't want to enter the Eastern Palace. She got dead drunk. This morning, no matter what, I couldn't wake her. The prince's sedan was already at the door. I had no choice but to get in the sedan myself. She acts as if she were forced. I speak up, confused. Sister, you have it backwards, don't you? Last night, it was you who was crying to mother, refusing to marry to the north. You insisted on staying with me through the night. Now that I think about it, was it just to make it easier to steal my dress? Jiang Chongning's face turns deathly pale. Her body sways. Sister, what are you saying? I only feared you would miss the ceremony and ruin the prime minister's reputation. That's why I married in your stead. I intended to switch back later. Since we were children, What have I ever had that I didn't let you use first? I tried to help you once, and you think of me this way? She breaks into uncontrollable sobbing. The crown prince can't help but pull her into his arms, his eyes full of pity. He looks at me coldly. Since second young Mistress Jiang is unwilling to marry me, why bother coming here now? Chongming saved you from a crisis, yet instead of being grateful, you bite the hand that feeds you. I have already bowed to heaven and earth with Chongming. She is my wife. It is clear by now that you simply weren't destined to be crown princess. I look at him coldly. It was exactly like this in the previous life. They conspired to pin the crime of disrespecting elders and despising the royal family on me while they acted like a couple of star-crossed lovers being praised as a perfect match. A perfect pair, indeed. They smear my name while walking out clean before the public. How can that be fair? I give a faint laugh. So sister was thinking of me marrying in my place, but I wouldn't dare marry in sister's place. After all, I don't have sister's lotus mark on my forehead. I couldn't possibly stabilize the Shonu in the north. Jiang Chongming's gaze falters. She looks up again, acting pathetic. Sister, are you trying to drive me to my death? I have already bowed with the prince. I am already his wife. Are you trying to force me to marry another now? Is your reputation the only thing that matters? Is mine like a piece of worthless grass? The crown prince's heart softens at her look. The way he looks at me becomes even more cold and hateful. The crowd whispers. The looks they cast my way are full of scrutiny and contempt. As if confirming I am the ungrateful one. The one guilty of having a secret affair. I smile slightly. I slowly pull something out of the box that held the imperial decree. I know sister values her reputation more than life itself. The things I pull out silently shock everyone in the hall. It is a sleeping robe that only a crown prince can wear, embroidered with a golden dragon. I gently spread the garment on the floor, which acts like a thunderclap in the silent hall. I take in all their expressions. I laugh softly. This rare garment that only the prince can wear strangely appeared in sister's bridal sedan. The relationship between sister and his highness is very easy to misunderstand. Not giving them a chance to argue, I pull out a small dragon-patterned seal. His highness even gave his personal seal to sister. It seems their relationship is truly extraordinary. The emperor's eyes narrow. He smashes a teacup against the crown prince's head. As I speak, I take out a piece of silk fabric and fiddle with it. I just don't know what this is. Maybe sister could explain? An observant woman gasps. Could that be what pregnant servants use? A binding belt for the belly? I've seen servants hiding pregnancies. They bind themselves with this. Jiang Chongming's eyes are bloodshot. That's not mine. I didn't think my sister would hate me so much. To insult my purity before the son of heaven. She then tries to run her head into a pillar. The prince hurriedly stops her, his eyes full of heartache. Chongming, that's enough. The emperor is furious. He slams his prayer beads down. The entire hall falls to their knees. Now the evidence is complete. Crown Prince, what else do you have to say? I didn't know you were so audacious as to swap the bride right under my nose. You didn't care for the princess I chose for you, and dared to use such methods to switch her? Crown Prince, you have a lot of nerve. The prince's hand around Jiang Chongming tightens. Father, your son and Chongming are truly in love. I beg father to grant us this. The Dowager Empress, just stepping in, is shaking with rage. Foolish. Jiang Chongming was titled the Lotus Holy Maiden by the Bureau of Astronomy. She was to marry north to settle the war. She is the woman of destiny. How can she stay? I am the legitimate daughter of the Prime Minister's estate. For the reputation of the family and the royals, I am willing to destroy this lotus mark. From now on, I will just be an ordinary person. As she says this, she takes a hairpin and prepares to slash her forehead. No need for a slash. A bowl of water will do. I grab a cup of tea from the table first, and splash it onto her face. Sure enough, the lotus mark dissolves upon contact with water. The guests cry out in shock. The Lotus Holy Maiden is a fake. The mark was painted on by Jiang Chongming herself. Jiang Chongming loses her composure instantly. She kneels, trembling uncontrollably. A look of ruthlessness flashes in the prince's eyes. Jiang Wanning, what trick did you use to make Chongming's lotus mark disappear? I tell you, Chongming was born a Lotus Holy Maiden. She is not someone a commoner, like you can compare to. It was you and your dead mother who were jealous, stealing the position of primary wife from Chongming's mother. Chongming is kind and always tolerated you at home. Now you dare to slander her like this? You have no respect for your elders. The Duchess of Yongcheng is furious. Crown Prince, what do you mean by this? You were supposed to marry the younger sister, yet you had a secret affair with the elder. On the wedding night, you switched them to humiliate Wanning. And now you say Wanning has no respect? Is the royal family going to let Wanning be wronged to death tonight? Your Majesty, years ago, Chongming's mother bribed the Bureau of Astronomy to forge her lotus destiny. In reality, Wanning is the true Lotus Holy Maiden. How could a painted-on fake compare to her? The lotus mark is on Wanning's body. Dowager Empress, please seek justice for this girl. If you don't believe it, you can examine her in public. Yes, the one with the lotus mark on her forehead was actually me. Back then, my father favored his concubine and mistreated his wife. After my mother gave up her position as primary wife, this lotus mark on my forehead became an eyesore to Jiang Chongning and her father, to steal the destiny of the Holy Maiden. They personally scarred over the mark on my forehead, and painted a fake one on Jiang Chongning's forehead. But what they didn't know is that another one grew over my heart. An even more noble lotus. Larger and more sacred. Hearing about the examination, Jiang Chongning's face turns white as paper. Her fingers grip the prince's sleeve tightly. She looks at him desperately, her eyes full of terror and a plea for help. The prince thinks she is just scared. He still has full confidence in Jiang Chongning. He holds her cold fingers without worry. Don't be afraid, Chongning. I want to see what other tricks she can pull. All the ministers in the hall can see it. The prince has already lost this game completely. The prince still thinks Wanning is the villain. He doesn't realize at all that he is holding a poisonous snake in his arms. Then let's wait and see. My face is calm. I kneel and bow to the Dowager Empress since His Highness is so certain. That sister is the Holy Maiden. And since the Duchess has spoken so bravely for me, then let the examination proceed. Otherwise, I could never clear my name. I beg the Emperor and Dowager Empress for justice. Permission granted for the examination. I want to see the Lotus Holy Maiden, who she truly is. A screen is set up to divide the hall. The Dowager Empress and a group of noble women personally step forward to check. I loosen my clothing slightly, revealing a noble lotus blooming over my heart. They can't help but reach out to touch it. This lotus grew from the heart, looking naturally like a budding flower. Everyone around gasps in awe. The Emperor asks in a deep voice, has the examination been completed clearly? The Dowager Empress walks out slowly. She nods to the Emperor, looking at the excited expressions of those women. The truth is obvious at a glance. The prince's face turns pale. He still insists Wanning must have tampered with something. Chongning is the true Lotus Holy Maiden. He turns around to pull Jiang Chongning out. Chongning, go and be examined for them to see. Let them know who the true Lotus Holy Maiden is. Jiang Chongning sees the questioning eyes of everyone in the hall and then looks into the prince's bloodshot eyes. A massive wave of fear completely consumes her. She suddenly clutches her stomach and screams in pain, falling to the ground drenched in cold sweat. My stomach. In the previous life, she relied on the child in her womb and her status as the Lotus Holy Maiden to secure her position in the Eastern Palace even after the bride switch. This time, I will certainly not let things go her way. Sister, what is wrong with you? Your face is so incredibly pale. I grab her hand and hand it to Imperial Physician Jiang, who entered the palace with me. The moment the physician checks her pulse, his expression changes. Reporting to your majesty, Miss Jiang is already 3 months pregnant. I throw the waist-binding sash I found earlier at her. Jiang Chongning has absolutely no way to deny it now. I swing my hand and slap Jiang Chongning hard. How shameless. From the very beginning, this was a trap you set just to marry the prince. You had a secret affair and conceived a child in secret, deceiving even the emperor. And yet you have the nerve to act like a virtuous woman here? She covers her face and shrinks back desperately, clinging to the prince's leg and begging, Prince, I didn't. Please save me. I am your wife. I have suffered such humiliation today. You must uphold justice for me. Is my sister trying to drive me to death before she's satisfied? She ruined my reputation and stole my destiny. Do you think she is only targeting me? No, husband and wife are one. She wants to kill us both before she's satisfied. I sneer, she is still trying to brainwash the prince. Exactly who stole whose things? The 180 loads of dowry my mother left for me were all carried into your bridal chamber. And you still have the face to say I stole from you? Jiang Chongning is driven to a dead end. She decides to throw caution to the wind. She shrieks, I am the Lotus Holy Maiden. I carry the royal air. I have the blood of the true dragon in me. Why should I fear a fraud like you? Before she can finish speaking, dark clouds suddenly press down low and a bolt of lightning strikes toward Jiang Chongning. Ah! My stomach. Jiang Chongning is instantly knocked to the ground. Blood begins to spread from under her skirt. She has miscarried. The prince is driven incoherent by the shock. He wants to step forward but fears being hit by lightning. He retreats repeatedly, muttering nonsense. It's not mine. It's Jiang Wanning. Yes, it must be her. The scheme she came up with is even longer. It must be so. He suddenly lunges at the Dowager Empress's feet. Imperial grandmother, you have always loved me the most. You must believe me, Chongning was framed. You must uphold justice for your granddaughter-in-law. The emperor watches the prince with disgust from the side, his eyes full of disappointment in his air. He gives the order on the spot. Jiang Chongning, daughter of the prime minister, stole her sister's destiny, deceived the emperor to fake being the crown princess, disobeyed the imperial decree, faked a political marriage, and was a disloyal subject. Her crimes are monstrous and too numerous to list. The prince seems to have gone mad. He blocks the way in front of the unconscious Jiang Chongning, not letting anyone take her away. He roars. She is my wife. She is my legally wed crown princess. No one can take her away. I won't allow it. You beast. The empress slaps the prince to the ground. Do you still want to protect this wench? Do you dare to defy even your father's command? The emperor tiredly rubs his brow. Tonight, the prince has dragged the royal family's reputation through the mud in front of all the ministers. He turns slightly to look at me, Jiang Wanning. You have been wronged. I will grant you whatever you desire. To salvage the royal family's dignity. He has no choice but to do this. Now, he will agree to whatever I say. I bow slightly. Your Majesty is wise. I am but a girl from the Prime Minister's house. To be seen by the Emperor, and have my grievances cleared, is already the greatest honor. I am moved to tears of gratitude. The prince lunges at me like a madman, pinning me down. Gratitude? Moved to tears? You destroyed my Chongning. You got your way and you're very proud, aren't you? I will destroy you too. I will kill you. Don't think that by bringing Chongning down, I will spare you a single glance, or marry you as my crown princess. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Even if you have the true lotus destiny, I won't look at you once more. You don't deserve it. You don't deserve me at all. I've known since childhood that your heart is malicious. And your character is hateful. You can't even compare to a single hair on your sister's head. And you think you can marry me? In your dreams. His fingers squeeze my wrist until it hurts, almost crushing my bones. The hatred in his eyes looks as if he wants to swallow me alive. Just as the Empress is about to step forward to scold him, the Emperor raises his hand to interrupt her. The Emperor looks at me. A flash of greed suddenly crosses his eyes. That look is like a hunter seeing his prey, instantly making me feel a strong sense of discomfort. He speaks slowly. Jiang Wanning, I see you are both brave and resourceful. And you carry the auspicious lotus mark. Why not enter my harem instead? I will title you a consort, granting you supreme favor. What do you think? His words plunge the hall into a dead silence once again. No one expected this. The Emperor would actually make such a request. To take a girl who just went through a bride-switching scandal into his own harem. The prince looks at the Emperor in even greater shock, his lips trembling, opening his mouth in disbelief. He wants to say something but not a single word comes out. His eyes are full of shock and confusion. Just then, a guard's announcement suddenly rings out from outside. The voice is loud and clear. Reporting to your Majesty, the Xiongnu envoy has arrived. This announcement is like a bucket of cold water, waking everyone in the hall. Everyone is jolted back to reality. Only then do they realize they have been caught in the crown princess scandal for too long. So long they forgot why the bride was switched. So long they forgot that today was originally for a marriage alliance. An alliance concerning Dazhao and the Xiongnu, and the peace between the two nations. The Xiongnu envoy walks quickly into the hall. He wears a black brocade robe unique to the Xiongnu, tall and upright in stature, with deep-set eyes, and a high bridge of the nose. His entire presence radiates a chilling aura. Clearly a warrior who has fought in the desert for years. He enters the hall, his gaze sweeping over the mess in the hall, sweeping over the blood on the floor, sweeping over me being pinned down, and over the mad prince and the unconscious Jiang Chongning. He takes in everything that happened in the hall, but only raises an eyebrow slightly, without the slightest hint of surprise, as if he had already expected it. He walks to the center of the hall, performs a Xiongnu salute towards the Emperor. His voice is deep, with the characteristic roughness of the desert, yet not lacking in etiquette. Your Majesty, may I ask where our Xiongnu queen is? Our king sent the most grand wedding procession. The wedding carriage has been at the Prime Minister's gate for long, yet the queen has not departed. Does Dazhao intend to go back on its word and start a war with our Xiongnu? His words carry a slight underlying pressure. The Emperor's expression changes instantly. Currently, Dazhao's national strength is depleted and the court is divided by factions. Though the people live in peace, they cannot withstand the turmoil of war. While the Xiongnu cavalry are brave and skilled in battle, 100,000 riders could break through Yanmen Pass and reach the city. Dazhao simply has no power to fight the Xiongnu. It is precisely because of this that the Emperor took the initiative to propose the marriage, hoping to use the auspiciousness of the Lotus Holy Maiden to quell the flames of war between the two countries and gain a moment of peace. Seeing the Xiongnu envoy's growing displeasure, and even a hint of rising anger, the Emperor hurriedly stands up, waves his hand, and explains with a forced smile. The envoy misinterprets. I have no intention of going back on my word. It's just that some mishaps occurred at the Prime Minister's house today, delaying the marriage schedule. I hope the envoy can be magnanimous. I take a deep breath, break free from the prince's hand and scramble up from the floor. I smooth my messy clothes, deeply bow to the Emperor, and speak every word clearly. Your Majesty, I am willing to take my sister's place to marry into Xiongnu to fulfill the joy of the marriage alliance and trade for 100 years of peace between Dazhao and Xiongnu. My words stun everyone in the hall. Even a flash of surprise crosses the Xiongnu envoy's eyes. He looks at me with a bit more curiosity. The prince looks up at me in disbelief, his eyes full of doubt and confusion. He cannot understand. I clearly have the chance to stay in the capital, to enjoy the Emperor's compensation, and even enter the palace as a consort, enjoying endless wealth and honor. Why choose to go far to the north, to that bitter, cold land for marriage? The Emperor also shows hesitation. Wanting, you don't need to do this. You carry the auspicious lotus mark. Staying in the capital can bring blessings to Dazhao. I have other arrangements for you. There's no need to go to the north to suffer. I shake my head, still kneeling on the ground to petition again. I beg your Majesty to fulfill my request today. No matter the outcome, I have already become a laughingstock in the capital. Staying here only adds to my troubles. Moreover, since your majesty asked what I desire, I have only one wish. To go far to the north, to contribute my humble strength to the country, and live up to the auspiciousness I carry, as well as the people of Dazhao. I know this capital carries too much of my pain and hatred. The tragic death in my previous life, the humiliations of this life, all leave me with no attachment to this place. And though the north is cold and bitter, it is my heart's desire, the best place to get away from all this drama. Furthermore, I have already reached an agreement with the Xiongnu envoy. This path to marriage is not a dead end. The emperor remains silent for a long time, looking at the determination in my eyes, and finally sighs deeply, nodding his head. Granted. But the Xiongnu envoy suddenly steps forward, interrupting the emperor's words. He looks at the emperor, his brow slightly furrowed with a hint of dissatisfaction. Your majesty, switching the bride of the marriage alliance, is unheard of even among us Xiongnu. First, the elder sister faked being the younger to enter the palace. Now, the younger sister is taking the elder's place for marriage. Dazhao's conduct. Is it not bullying our Xiongnu people? Do you think our Xiongnu have no one to speak for us? The emperor's expression changes again. He knows the Xiongnu envoy is truly angry. If not handled well, the peace between the nations will vanish, and the flames of war will ignite immediately. He hurriedly appeases him. Envoy, calm your anger. I have no such intention. This daughter of the Jiang family is no ordinary girl. She is the true Lotus Holy Maiden, born with auspiciousness, able to bring blessings far and wide. I have long intended to title her a princess. I will officially issue the decree today, bestowing upon Jiang Wanning the title of Princess Wang Yu. She shall marry into Xiongnu as a princess. Additionally, I am willing to send a dowry of 1,000,000 stones of grain, 1,000 acres of fertile land, and Dazhao's weaving and iron smelting techniques, all as gifts to the Xiongnu, hoping for an eternal bond between our nations, and 100 years of peace. The emperor's words give the Xiongnu plenty of face, and show more than enough sincerity. 1,000,000 stones of grain, 1,000 acres of land, and advanced technology. For a nomadic people like the Xiongnu, these are undoubtedly huge temptations. The Xiongnu envoy's expression finally softens. He looks at me, nods slightly, and says, in that case, we shall follow the Dazhao emperor's word. Our Xiongnu king will certainly not mistreat Princess Wang Yu. Thank you for your immense grace, your majesty. I calmly kowtow, accepting the title of Princess Wang Yu. Wang Yu, forget sorrow. If I could truly forget all my sorrows, that would be wonderful. The prince watches from the side, the unwillingness and resentment in his eyes almost turning into something tangible. He clenches his fists tightly, nails digging into his palms. Blood drips through his fingers. Yet he is completely unaware. He only growls in a low voice, Wang Yu? How does she deserve to forget sorrow? This malicious woman destroyed everything I had. She should be cut into 1,000 pieces. How can she get the title of princess? How can she enjoy such honor? In his voice, there is deep-seated resentment and bitterness, as if all his misfortunes were caused by me. I've never understood why the prince has always held such hatred for me. In both lives combined, the times I've met the prince are very few, countable on one hand, let alone taking the initiative to provoke him, but he loathes me to the extreme, wishing to get rid of me immediately. I slowly turn around to look at the prince, my gaze calm. With a hint of doubt, I ask, Your Highness, I have never understood exactly why. Do you have such great malice towards me? As far as I know, we have known each other for years, but have met no more than 3 times. What exactly did I do wrong to make your highness loathe me so much? Loathing me enough to let others destroy my purity, steal my marriage, and even risk deceiving the emperor, all to protect Jiang Chongning? My words make the prince lose control again. His eyes are bloodshot, like an enraged wild beast. He roars, 3 times. 3 times is enough for me to know your malice. Back then, just for a piece of osmanthus cake, because you were jealous of Chongning, you pushed me hard into the ice lake. If it weren't for Chongning disregarding danger, and jumping into the ice lake to save me, I would certainly not be alive today. After I was saved and brought to shore, I lay by the lake shivering with cold. But I saw you, still sitting there at ease, eating osmanthus cake, and smiling so happily. A cold-blooded woman like you actually dares to ask why. The prince's words leave me stunned. Images from when I was 8 years old flash in my mind. That year was the Dowager Empress's birthday. A banquet was held in the palace. It was my first time attending a palace banquet. At that time, my mother had just been demoted to a concubine, and I lived on thin ice in the prime minister's house. My nature was also exceptionally timid. The prince was 11 that year, an age where children are very playful. He insisted on chasing wild ducks on the ice lake. I watched from the side as the ice was as thin as a sheet of paper, unable to support a person's weight. I tried to stop him repeatedly, but the prince didn't listen at all, continuing to run forward. Sure enough, the ice cracked, and the prince fell into the lake. The icy water instantly submerged him. He struggled desperately, letting out a shrill cry for help. The surrounding servants were too scared to move. In my panic, I jumped into the icy water without thinking, pushing the prince towards the shore with all my might. I was small then, with very little strength. It took a long time just to push him to the shore, where he was saved by the arriving guards, but I, due to physical exhaustion, almost sank into the lake. Finally, I was saved by the Duchess of Yongchang and had a high fever for 3 days and nights, almost losing my life, but I never imagined that in the prince's memory, the person who saved him was Jiang Chongning, while I became the villain who pushed him into the lake. I look at the prince with a trembling voice, my eyes full of disbelief. I ask, Your Highness, you say Jiang Chongning saved you? Then how did you recognize the person who saved you as Jiang Chongning? The prince doesn't even think, blurting out. Naturally, it was because of the lotus mark on her forehead. When she jumped in to save me, the lotus mark on her forehead was clearly visible. I saw it very clearly. There can be no mistake. I suddenly laugh, laughing until tears almost come out. This laughter is filled with endless irony and sorrow. So that's how it was. He believed Jiang Chongning was his savior. Only because of that fake lotus mark, my life-risking rescue became a malicious shove in his eyes. All those years of his loathing and hatred for me were because of a carefully woven lie. I look at the prince mockingly. Does your highness actually believe that with Jiang Chongning's frail body, she could save you from an ice lake? She was pampered since childhood, finding even a bucket of water heavy, let alone saving a boy taller than her in an icy lake. And that lotus mark on her forehead, it didn't dissolve in the water? How miraculous! Could it be that the mark was painted with waterproof ink? My words are like a sharp knife, stabbing deeply into the prince's heart. The prince, who was just raging, suddenly freezes. He stands dazed on the spot, the anger and resentment in his eyes, bit by bit being replaced by doubt and confusion. He opens his mouth to say something, but not a word comes out. Images from when he was 8 flash through his mind, flashing to Jiang Chongning's frail figure, and that lotus mark that wouldn't dissolve in water. The details he had ignored now appear clearly before his eyes. The Dowager Empress, seeing the prince like this, shivers with rage. She shouts sternly, Men, take the prince away immediately, and confine him to the Eastern Palace, without the Emperor's decree. He is not to step out of the Eastern Palace. The Empress also feels she has lost all face. She steps forward to pull the prince, and signals to the guards. The guards hurriedly step forward and lift the prince, dragging him out of the hall. The prince struggles all the way, but he is no match for the guard's strength. He is dragged away, disappearing from everyone's sight. This earth-shattering Eastern Palace wedding banquet finally ends. In the end, it all came to a hasty conclusion. I received the Emperor's imperial decree for my title as princess and He Qing's wishes, carrying the decree for the marriage alliance. I walked out of the hall with the Xiongnu envoys, ready to set off. The Duchess of Yongchang held my hand, her eyes filled with reluctance and worry. Wanting, with reddened eyes. The northern border is cold and bitter. You must take good care of yourself on this journey. If you suffer the slightest grievance, send word to me. The Yongchang Manor will always be your backer. I looked at the Duchess of Yongchang, my heart full of gratitude. I nodded. Rest assured, Duchess, I will. Thank you for speaking up for me today. I will never forget your kindness. After bidding farewell to the Duchess, I sat in the bridal sedan chair heading for the Xiongnu lands. This sedan chair was even more magnificent than the one originally prepared for Jiang Chongning. It was far more solemn. After all, I am now the great Zhao's Princess Wang Yu, the true Lotus Holy Maiden. The sedan chair slowly pulled out, leaving the Eastern Palace and heading through the capital streets. The streets were lined with commoners watching the spectacle. They pointed at the sedan chair, whispering and discussing. There was curiosity, regret, and also blessings. Sitting inside the sedan chair, I lifted the curtain and looked at the familiar city streets outside. I felt no lingering attachment, only a sense of relief. The capital, the city that buried all the hope and luck of my past life. I am finally leaving. Unexpectedly, as we reached the city gate, we were stopped by someone. My legal mother, dressed in finery, stood at the city gate. Her face was distorted in front of the sedan chair, as she shouted a reprimand. Stop. Stop right there. She then turned to the surrounding commoners, shouting heart-wrenchingly, attempting to incite the public. Everyone, come and look. This is the second miss of the Prime Minister's house, Jiang Wanning. She is malicious and cruel. She stole her sister's marriage, and caused her sister's reputation to be ruined, leading her to be thrown into the dungeons. How can there be such a sister in this world? How can there be such a virtuous lady? Everyone, please judge this for yourselves. Her voice was sharp and piercing, causing the crowd to look over and point at the sedan chair. The palace nanny beside the sedan chair showed her no respect at all. The nanny was from the Dowager Empress's side, having seen many grand scenes. She kept her back ramrod straight, stepped forward, and said coldly to the mother, Where did this woman come from? How dare you block the princess's sedan chair? Open your eyes and look clearly. The person inside is not some second miss of a manner, but the Princess Wang Yu, bestowed by the Emperor himself, the Xiongnu consort who is traveling for the marriage alliance. You dare to act wildly here? Are you tired of living, Princess Wang Yu? What Princess Wang Yu? The smugness on the mother's face froze instantly. As if she had heard the world's biggest joke. She pointed at the sedan chair and shrieked. The one sitting inside is clearly that wretch Wanning. She is the one who harmed my Changning. You lowly servants dare to insult me? You dare to help this wretch deceive the people? Men, tear open this sedan chair. Drag this wretch out so everyone can see her. Let them see what this chaotic concubine-born girl looks like. As she spoke, she moved to pull the curtain. And the servants from the Prime Minister's house behind her were also eager to help. Before I could even speak, the Xiongnu envoy jumped down from his horse and blocked the sedan chair. He was tall and imposing. His gaze icy cold, holding a curved scimitar. The blade was drawn, gleaming with a chilling light. He said coldly to the mother, "Whoever dares to touch the princess's sedan chair, do not blame my blade for being merciless." His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a sharp killing intent. The mother and those servants were instantly terrified and froze, not daring to take another step. The mother looked at the scimitar, fear flashing in her eyes. Yet she was still unwilling to give up, trying to say something more. Just then, an aged voice came from behind the crowd. Impudence. I opened the curtain and looked up, only to see my grandmother, who rarely left her Buddhist hall, being supported by a maid as she walked through the crowd. Grandmother was wearing a plain silk robe. Her hair was white, and her face was lined with wrinkles, yet her eyes remained sharp, holding a staff in her hand. She walked step by step toward the mother. Before the mother could speak, grandmother raised her staff and thumped it heavily against her. Caught off guard, the mother was pushed back repeatedly, falling to the ground. Grandmother looked at her, her eyes full of anger and disappointment. She scolded harshly, "You venomous woman. It is all because of you. Leading the children astray. Raising a daughter like Changning who is shameless. And dared to deceive the emperor. And now you dare to act wildly here. Losing all the Jiang family's face. The good daughter you raised had a miscarriage in public in the palace. Now the entire court and all officials, and every citizen in the capital knows that the prince and the prime minister's legitimate daughter committed adultery before marriage. With the Jiang family involved in such a scandal, you still have the face to cry grievance here?" With every sentence grandmother spoke, the mother's face grew whiter, and her body trembled more. She sat paralyzed on the ground, looking at grandmother, her lips quivering as she tried to speak. But not a word came out. "Impossible. It's impossible," she muttered. "Our plan was clearly foolproof. How could it turn out like this? It should have been Changning marrying into the Eastern Palace to become the crown princess, while Wanning was married off to the Xiongnu to die in the north. How could it be reversed?" She still refused to accept reality, lost in the beautiful dream she had woven. I looked coldly at her miserable state. She was sprawled on the ground, her hair disheveled, her clothes messy. She no longer had the dignified look of a prime minister's wife. I spoke softly. "Indeed, in my past life, your plan was indeed foolproof. Changning married into the Eastern Palace, becoming the crown princess, ruling over the world, while I, framed by you and Changning, suffered every humiliation and finally had my head severed, dying tragically outside Yanmen Pass. But in this life, I have returned from hell, and I will make everyone who harmed me pay the price they deserve. Everything you owe me, and everything you owe my mother, I will claim it all back." My voice was calm, but it carried a bone-chilling coldness. The mother suddenly looked up at me, her eyes filled with terror and disbelief, as if seeing me for the first time. Refusing to give up, she desperately crawled to grandmother's feet, clinging to her legs and begging, "Mother, please save Changning. I beg you to save Changning. You grew up in the palace. Your bond with the Dowager Empress is deep. Please go and beg the Dowager Empress. And beg the Emperor to release Changning. Changning is also your biological granddaughter. You cannot just watch her die." Grandmother looked at her state, her eyes full of disappointment. She pushed the mother's hand away and said coldly, "If Wanning hadn't taken the burden of the marriage alliance, calming the emperor's wrath, and receiving the title of Princess Wang Yu, saving the family's honor, the Jiang family would have already been executed to the 9th generation. How would you even be alive standing here? If you want to save Changning, go beg Wanning. If Wanning is willing to let it go, perhaps Changning might have a way to live." The mother's gaze slowly turned toward me, falling upon me, her eyes filled with complex emotions. There was hatred, resentment, and a sliver of despair. She opened her mouth, trying to say something, but in the end, she couldn't speak. The last bit of strength seemed to drain from her body. She sat slumped on the ground, her eyes vacant, looking as if she had gone mad. I curled my lips into a smile, with no pity in my eyes. I slowly lowered the curtain, and said to the Xiongnu envoy, "Let's depart. I will never lend a helping hand to those who caused my tragic death in my past life. This is the end they deserve." The Xiongnu envoy nodded, and signaled to the guards. The guards immediately surrounded the sedan chair, and continued toward the city gates, leaving the mother slumped at the gate, looking insane, while the people pointed and whispered. Inside the palace, the prince was confined to the Eastern Palace. In his mind, he couldn't stop replaying the words I said today, recalling the frozen lake incident at age 8. Those details he had ignored slowly became clear in his mind, filling his heart with doubt and unease. He couldn't calm down at all. Restless and unable to sit still. Eventually, he couldn't help himself, and took guards to sneak out of the Eastern Palace at night, running to the dungeons to seek the truth. The dungeon was cold and damp. Jiang Changning was locked in the deepest cell. Her fine clothes had long been replaced by a prisoner's garb. Her hair was a mess, and her face still bore the handprint from when I slapped her. She was in a wretched state. When she saw the prince arrive, a spark of light flashed in her eyes, as if she were grasping a lifeline. She threw herself against the bars and begged, "Prince, you're here. Quick, save me. Get me out of here. This place is too terrifying. I don't want to stay here. I want to go out." Seeing her like this, the doubts in the prince's heart grew even heavier. He said coldly to his guards, "Drag her out. Take her to the frozen lake outside the city." The guards didn't dare to disobey. They immediately opened the cell and dragged Jiang Changning out, forcing her to follow the prince to the frozen lake outside the city. It was now late at night. A bitter wind swept across the frozen lake. The surface was covered in a thick layer of ice, just like the scene when they were 8. The prince pointed at the lake and said coldly to Jiang Changning, "Jump in." Jiang Changning was stunned, looking at the icy lake. Her eyes were filled with terror, and she backed away repeatedly. "Prince, have you gone mad? This lake is so cold. Jumping in will kill me. I won't jump. I absolutely won't. I, the crown prince, command you to jump." The prince shouted sternly, his eyes filled with cold fury. "Back then, you jumped into the lake right here to save me. Now I'm just asking you to jump again, and you don't even dare? Jiang Changning, did you ever actually save me? Tonight, I want to find out for sure." Saying this, he signaled to the guards. The guards immediately seized Jiang Changning and pushed her ruthlessly into the lake. The icy water submerged Jiang Changning instantly. She struggled desperately in the water, letting out shrill cries for help. She choked on several mouthfuls of lake water. She couldn't swim at all, merely thrashing about wildly. Just as she was about to sink, the guards, seeing this, quickly pulled her back out of the water. Jiang Changning lay on the ice, shivering from head to toe, her face deathly pale. She looked up and hissed at the prince. "Your Highness, why would you do this to me?" The prince looked at her, thrashing even in the shallowest area. The last shred of hope in his heart vanished. The images from when he was 8 flooded his mind. The water back then was even colder, and the ice broke in a much deeper spot. If it were really someone like Jiang Changning, who couldn't even keep herself afloat, it would have been impossible to save him from the deep water. He finally understood. He had believed the wrong person all these years. He had protected the wrong person. The so-called saving grace was nothing but a carefully orchestrated scam. And he had been kept in the dark for over 20 years, treating his actual savior as an enemy, humiliating her in every possible way. A wave of overwhelming regret and anger instantly swept over him. He clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. He walked step by step toward Jiang Changning, looking down at her, his voice devoid of any warmth. "You can't swim at all. The one who saved me back then wasn't you, right?" Jiang Changning felt a chill in her heart under his gaze. Her lips trembled, yet she still tried to make a final excuse. I just haven't practiced in years. My swimming skills have gotten rusty. I really did save you back then. Your Highness, you must believe me." "Enough." The prince cut her off, his voice carrying a bone-deep chill. "Even now, you still want to lie? Jiang Changning, you've deceived me for over 20 years, using a fake lotus mark, using a false story of saving my life, to make me give you my heart and soul. For you, I deceived the emperor, ruined my marriage contract, lost my position as the heir, and even trampled my actual savior under my feet, insulting her in every way. Tell me, in these 20+ years, has a single word you said to me been true?" His words were like sharp knives, stabbing deep into Jiang Changning's heart. She could no longer hold on, slumping on the ice, her eyes vacant. She could no longer pretend. "So what if I lied to you? I didn't save you back then. It was Jiang Wanning. He was the one who jumped in to save you. But after you were saved and brought to shore, I secretly drew the lotus mark on my forehead, and ran to your side to pretend. I just wanted to be your savior. Wanted to marry into the Eastern Palace. Wanted to be the crown princess." The truth was finally out. The prince felt as if his entire body's blood had frozen solid. He stumbled back a step, his back hitting a cold stone pillar. Yet he felt no cold from it. He only felt his heart had been ripped open, aching so much he couldn't breathe. He thought of his hatred for Jiang Wanning over the years, thought of his accusations against her on the wedding day, thought of how he called her a venomous snake, saying she was unworthy to be his princess. Thinking back now, every word was a stab to his own heart. The greatest irony of his life, for a woman full of lies, he betrayed the one who actually saved his life. He even personally pushed her toward that bitter, cold land in the north. How foolish he was. How blind and heartless. Truly beyond forgiveness. Jiang Changning, seeing his soul-shattered look, thought there might still be a chance. She quickly crawled to his feet, clinging to his legs, pleading pitifully, "Prince, I know I was wrong. I truly know I was wrong. Please give me another chance, okay? I really love you. I just wanted to be with you so badly. Take me away with you, please. We'll find a place where no one knows us and start over. The prince looked down at her hypocritical face. Feeling nothing but endless disgust and nausea, he suddenly raised his foot and kicked her away ruthlessly. Jiang Changning slammed onto the ice, striking her forehead. Blood instantly began to flow. The prince looked at her and said word by word, "Start over? Do you think I'll ever give you such a chance again? Jiang Changning, the things you've done, deceiving the emperor, stealing another's identity, embezzling the dowry, every single thing you've done, is a capital crime. You will never leave that dungeon for the rest of your life." After speaking, he didn't spare her another glance. He turned and said coldly to the guards, "Throw her back into the cell. Keep her under strict watch. If she dares to cause trouble again, flog her directly. There is no need to report to me." The guards immediately stepped forward, lifting the slumped Jiang Changning, dragging her back toward the dungeons. Seeing the prince was resolute, and there was no more affection left, she finally tore off all her disguises. On the ice, she screamed with all her might, acting like a madwoman. "Jiang Xian, you ungrateful wretch. I've sacrificed so much for you, and you treat me like this. What's so good about that wretch Jiang Wanning? She's just a concubine-born girl. You're actually doing this to me for her? I won't let you off even as a ghost." Her shrill curses echoed over the empty frozen lake. The prince did not look back at all. He walked forward step by step, the ice beneath him making slight cracking sounds. Just like his shattered heart, he reached the center of the lake. Looking at the patch of ice that had once broken, he slowly crouched down, dipping his hand into the freezing water. The chill was bone-piercing, yet far less than the regret in his heart. He remembered back when he was 8. That small figure, jumping into the lake without a second thought, using all her strength to push him to shore. He remembered when that figure was saved. Her lips were purple with cold, yet she was still worried about him. He remembered that after he woke up, he had been tearfully grateful for Jiang Changning's fake mark, throwing his actual savior to the back of his mind. In over 20 years of time, he had turned gratitude into hatred, and kindness into malice. Now that he had finally realized it, everything had already changed. The person he had failed had already set off on the path to the north for a marriage alliance, and she would never look back. The prince let go, letting the icy water slip through his fingers. He slowly stood up, staggering backward, finally slumping onto the ice. He lowered his head and laughed until tears came. That laughter was full of remorse, full of despair, and full of self-loathing. "For you, I broke my engagement, angered my imperial father, and even lost my position as the heir apparent. As it turns out, the person I loved was nothing more than a mask you wore," he muttered to himself, his voice hoarse. "Jiang Wanning, I am sorry. I was blind. I have failed you." But this apology was ultimately too late. The person he failed could no longer hear it. The prince returned to the Eastern Palace, soul-shattered, only to be met with the emperor's complete disappointment and an imperial decree to depose the heir apparent. A few days later, the emperor issued the decree, officially stripping the prince of his title. He was demoted to a commoner and confined to the imperial tombs in the capital's outskirts, never to return for all eternity. The once magnificent prince finally paid a bitter price for his own confusion and blindness. For the rest of his life, in the cold loneliness of the tombs, he could only repent for his mistakes. Meanwhile, in the prime minister's estate, after being severely reprimanded by the dowager, the stepmother fell ill upon returning home. She spent her days in a state of madness, sometimes crying out Changning's name, and other times cursing Wanning as a wretched girl. Seeing that she had lost her power, the servants of the estate treated her with cold indifference. No one was willing to serve her sincerely. A few days later, news of the prince's deposition reached the estate. When the stepmother learned the prince was deposed and that Changning would never have a chance to rise again, she couldn't catch her breath and fainted on the spot. When she woke up again, she had completely lost her mind. With disheveled hair, she ran out of the estate, rushing into the streets, telling everyone she met that she was the mother of the crown princess, that her daughter was the holy lady of the lotus, and that Jiang Wanning had stolen everything from her daughter. She wept and made a scene in the streets, while passers-by pointed at her as a madwoman. Finally, she was dragged back to the estate by the servants and locked in the woodshed. Not long after, the prime minister returned to the capital from his mission in Jiangnan. As soon as he entered the estate, he learned of all the upheavals that had occurred. His daughter was imprisoned for life for deception. His wife had gone mad, and the other daughter was a princess sent far away to Shonu for an alliance. Furthermore, he himself was reprimanded by the emperor for the estate's affairs, demoted by 3 ranks, and lost a great deal of face. Looking at the broken home before him, the prime minister was filled with anger and disappointment. He walked to the woodshed, and looking at the raving stepmother, he no longer felt the slightest connection. On the spot, he wrote a letter of divorce and cast her out of the estate. After being divorced, the stepmother had nowhere to stay, and was forced to live on the streets. Eventually, somehow, she wandered to the outside of Jiang Changning's old chambers. She kept watch day and night without eating or drinking. A few days later, She breathed her last on the cold steps. Even at her death, she was still calling out Changning's name. After this incident, the Prime Minister became disillusioned with domestic struggles. He made the songstress he brought back from Jiangnan his primary wife, to restore order to the estate. However, after this ordeal, the Prime Minister's estate's reputation was ruined and it never regained its former glory. In the end, the Prime Minister became the kind of man he once loathed most. One who favors a concubine over his wife, cold and heartless. All this news, carried by the accompanying servants, gradually reached the procession traveling far to the north. I sat in the bridal sedan, listening to the servants' low-voiced report, feeling not a single ripple in my heart. I felt neither relief nor pity. This was the end they deserved. The pain and humiliation they inflicted on me, in my previous life, was now merely being repaid one by one. The wedding procession continued north. The further we went, the colder the weather became, and the roads became increasingly rugged, from the bustling capital, to the desolate countryside, then to the rolling mountain ranges, and finally into the endless great desert. The scenery in my eyes changed from vibrant colors to withered yellow, until finally, there was only the desert sand under the sky. Most of the servants were raised in the capital. How could they have endured such hardship? Complaints rose all along the way, and many fell ill. Only the Shonu guards and the envoy remained full of energy, adapting to the desert environment. The Shonu envoy was extremely considerate of me from start to finish. He would personally check if the embeds were soft, have meals prepared according to my taste, and when passing through rugged terrain, he would have the sedan slow down. He even found sweet spring water for me, amidst the swirling sands of the desert, and drove away the bothersome sand rats. His care had long since exceeded the normal etiquette an envoy should show toward a princess for an alliance. The accompanying servants looked at me with increasing scrutiny and curiosity, but no one dared to say a word. My heart was also full of doubt, not understanding why he treated me so uniquely. It wasn't until the procession passed through Yanmen Pass and came to a sudden, unexplained stop that this doubt finally found an answer. I lifted the sedan curtain and stepped down. The cold wind swirled with sand, blowing against my face, with a bone-chilling intent. The gates of Yanmen Pass were majestic and tall, the plaque on the wall weathered and mottled by time. Yet it still exuded an awe-inspiring aura. I looked up at those gates, my heart filled with mixed emotions. In my previous life, I died tragically right here, outside Yanmen Pass. My head was severed and hung on the wall to be weathered by wind and rain. Standing here again, it felt like a lifetime ago. I could almost see my past self, covered in blood, with eyes full of despair. The Shonu envoy walked to my side, looking up at the plaque on the gate with me. He remained silent for a long time before finally speaking slowly. His voice was deep, carrying a trace of subtle loneliness. I once had a wife. She died here. My heart jolted. I turned to look at him, my eyes full of surprise. So there was someone else just like me, who outside this Yanmen Pass, had left behind an unforgettable trauma. I said softly, the envoy must have loved her very much, to remember her so clearly. Even after all these years, you are still moved by the scene when passing this place. That love must be profound. He turned and looked deeply at me. His eyes were as deep as the night sky, as if they were about to pull me in entirely. He was silent for a moment, before slowly saying, no, I never met her. I was stunned. The confusion in my heart deepened. How could someone he never met be his wife? And how could he remember her so dearly? Right then, I suddenly felt a familiar palpitation coming from my heart. The lotus hidden beneath my skin began to heat up slightly. A faint warmth spread from my chest to my entire body, dispelling the desert's chilly aura. This palpitation was stronger than ever before, as if it were responding to something, or as if it were resonating with a certain person. I looked down at my chest, my eyes full of amazement. Meanwhile, the Shonu envoy was watching me, the corners of his lips curling up slightly to reveal a simple smile. That smile, amidst the desert sands, seemed exceptionally gentle. All along the journey, all his kindness towards me, and his special treatment, now had an answer. Yet I was still puzzled. Why would he be so sorrowful over a wife he had never even seen? I looked at him and asked softly, if you never saw her, how can she be called your wife? He raised his hand and gently brushed the sand from my shoulder. His movements were soft, carrying a hint of carefulness. His voice was deep, like the drifting sands of the desert, yet it held a trace of tenderness. He said slowly into my ear, so, this time I wanted to see her in person, to see what kind of person she is. If she is as the rumors say, and why she was unwilling to marry me. His words were like a thunderclap, exploding in my heart. I looked up at him abruptly, my eyes full of disbelief. His wife, the wife he never saw. Could it be me? I stared at him blankly, unable to speak for a moment. Countless thoughts surged through my mind. The tragic death of my past life, the marriage alliance of this life, his kindness throughout the journey, his words under Yanmen Pass, and the palpitation of the lotus in my chest. Everything seemed to connect, pointing to an incredible answer. Seeing my startled look, the smile on his lips deepened. He took a step forward, facing me at a close distance. The desert wind carried his scent, lingering at the tip of my nose. It was a faint scent of herbs, mixed with the smell of desert sand. Exceptionally refreshing. He looked down at me and asked softly, "Do you know now?" I looked into his deep eyes, seeing the tenderness and sincerity within them. The lotus in my chest was still burning, and an unprecedented excitement quietly rose from the bottom of my heart. I was silent for a moment, then nodded gently. Upon seeing this, he laughed heartily. The laughter was bright and heroic, piercing through the desert sand, and echoing outside Yenmen Pass, dispelling all the gloom and loneliness. He reached out and took my hand. His palm was large and warm, enveloping my hand, and driving away the chill from my fingertips. He led me deeper into the desert. Behind us was the majestic Yenmen Pass, and the fading kingdom of Dazhao. Before us was the endless desert, an unknown but hope-filled future. His voice rang out again, deep and firm, traveling through the desert sand, reaching my ears, and carving itself into my heart. It is good that you know. It turns out that in this life, you have come early. The desert sand continued to blow, but it could no longer blow away the warmth in my heart. The suffering and humiliation of my past life have finally become the past. In this life, I returned from hell, punished my enemies, cleared my grievances, and finally, in this vast desert, encountered the man whose heart and eyes are full of me. The wind outside Yenmen Pass has finally brought me the tenderness I deserve, and that lotus growing in my heart will finally bloom on the desert soil, radiating its most sacred light, blessing all directions, and warming the rest of my life. From then on, Dazhao had one less Jiang Wanning, and Xiongnu had one more princess consort Wang Yu. Among the winds of the desert, the story of the Holy Lady of the Lotus and the King of Xiongnu will always be told. A deep affection that spanned life and death, crossed through hell, and was a mutual journey for two people, will endure forever in the vast desert.